talking about is this experience of emotion phobia today, and fear of our own internal experience as queer people. Megan, I remember you saying when I wrote this blog piece that this piece is very me. I feel like this is something I talk about a lot and I experience a lot, this like sort of fear of my own experience and helping sort of coach or guide people back to their experience through that level of fear. Mm.
It's so interesting that you say that. I mean, yes, I did think that the article was very you, and and yet you're one of I feel like you can be in touch with your feelings and articulate them better than almost anybody I know. So, um,
It's an
so
interesting dynamic because I mean, to be honest, I feel like it's so like hit or miss. Like I feel like sometimes I'm so in touch and other times I'm like not at all. And just working with that. And I find, yeah, I think with all of us, it's like we kind of waver at times where it's like at certain times we get the payoff of the work that we've done and we're more connected. Other times it's like we're more distant and it can feel really difficult.
yeah, for sure. And the let's talk about the queer piece because I really do feel so. Let's say everyone, to some extent, is a little bit afraid of their feelings, right? Um, like a little afraid of the big feelings, let's say anger, sadness, depression, but also, really, also kind of some of the bigger, like all out joy.
Yeah.
It's like we're just a little bit nervous about the the big places that we can go. And
Mhm.
I think that as a queer person, if you are growing up in a world that is not giving you a lot of positive feedback for who you are
Mhm.
naturally, then it's kind of like creating that loving internal experience and accepting all those feelings is sort of double the work.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So this is two layers that kind of exacerbate each other a bit that we find with our queer clients and with ourselves and with our fellow therapists, where on the one level there's just affect phobia, emotion phobia that we all kind of grow up with in this culture, and also just like it is kind of a scary experience to have this big charge internally. Like you don't quite know what it's going to turn into if you let it up, right? And so there's a tendency to kind of like cut off from it or repress it or just try to let it up in very controlled doses, and our culture really reinforces that fear. Capitalism is really about like productivity and our rational brain, right? Like always being in control. And so emotions present some risk to that, or a lot of risk to that. So I think everybody in our culture grows up with quite a bit of emotion phobia, right? Like fear of our own internal experience, our big emotions, like you said. And then that this added layer, sorry, you adding something to that?
No, no, go ahead.
This added layer of growing up queer. And it's like, so you already have this sort of emotion phobia going on internally. And then you also have like what we often call like internalized homophobia, internalized transphobia. It's like the messages that you're getting, that we're talking mostly in much younger life, like before you found safety for yourself, the messages that you're getting about not only your emotions, but also like your sort of core identity is like usually somewhat negative. And so there's a fear of your emotional reality, there's a fear of your big emotions, there's the fear of your sexuality, your gender identity, right? Like so these things tend to exacerbate each other, where it's like there's a tendency to fear anything that's coming up from below as we go into our adult lives. And I guess what we see, in therapy is that these patterns tend to continue even after, we come out, we're living our best queer lives, we're like feeling actualized, and yet there's like this really, really deep, younger fear within us to kind of be with our experience, express our experience with others. So yeah, that's what am I missing there? What did I kind of like not explain well?
No, I think that's perfect. You touched upon um, something that's making me think. So our feelings have wisdom. It's sort of, like this idea, like the body is always telling the truth, right? Which it
Hmm.
is, but sometimes I don't want to listen. I don't want to be with my feelings because it's going to point me in a direction that my head is not wanting to go in. So,
Right.
so like if let's say I'm a people pleaser and I really don't want to make waves in a certain situation. And I'm doing this because, I need community and I need to get along, or I want to keep my job, or whatever the thing is, but there's these other feelings that are happening, right? And so to pay attention to them might mean having to sort of deal with this conflict, right? So
Mhm.
honestly, I do think that people are always trying to do the best they can all the time.
Mhm.
I guess here we're encouraging, and this is like over a lifetime, you know, getting closer to yourself,
Mhm.
your trusting your emotions and what they're trying to tell you, right? And kind of leading body forward as opposed to mind
Mhm.
forward. But that's a big process.
Yeah, I mean, we're all doing this work, right? And I think there is this question of like how much at odds are your feelings with the life you've constructed, right? Or the identities you've chosen, the communities you've chosen. Like if we're just telling that sort of stereotypical story of like growing up in an unsafe environment as a queer person, repressing, creating a false self that fits into this fucked up world. And then like when feelings are actually coming up that are like saying, "Oh, whoa, this is really dangerous in this world that you've kind of learned how to be accepted in." Uh, that battle can feel like really intense because you've put so much energy into that being accepted, that the feeling might be really at odds with that self that you've constructed. And so I think it's just like this question of how at odds are your deeper feelings from like the life that you've constructed and the people that you're surrounding yourselves by. And I think partially that's like adjusting perhaps like some of your external situations. Like maybe there are people that are like a little bit like subtly homophobic around you, or maybe like that just don't feel like they make your nervous system feel relaxed. And then a lot of it is also just internal of like actually listening to what's coming up in your body and trusting what's coming up in your body, not just like saying, oh, this is just kind of this big, messy emotion. I need to get away from it, but like actually in a safe space, like in therapy, letting that energy up and listening to what it's saying, and building this kind of relationship between you and your emotional experience.
So the building of that relationship is bit by bit over time, right?
Mhm.
So let's talk about ways in which we can just do that. So because we're not going to just all of a sudden to be able to be our own best friend,
Yep.
feeling every emotion as soon as it comes up. Like this doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow process of trusting oneself and trusting our own ability to do that. And then getting to the place where you're actually like, oh wow, this is so good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very gradual work. I think a good starting place is anxiety. If you can view anxiety, this is how I was trained as a therapist. If you can view anxiety as like a warning signal of some deeper emotion, sometimes we just spend our whole life trying to avoid anxiety. And in doing that, we're actually avoiding our deeper emotions as well. But if you can actually learn how to tolerate anxiety, like in a safe container, in like with a therapist, or with somebody who can really handle emotions and start to actually be with it and bring it into a relationship, then it usually gives way to something much deeper. But you have to learn how to tolerate that feeling. It's like a you can imagine it just like an alarm bell going off in your body. So I actually find that to be a really good place to start because I feel like we all have anxiety. It's like we all have it. And so if you're looking for kind of a roadmap,
Yeah.
towards this very gradual work, I think that's a good place to start. The part of you that's really kind of like scared, the part of you that is a little wound up or worried, like actually listening to what it's saying.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I also do that. Um, sort of the beginning of my meditation practice is sort of sitting and actually just kind of feel like it's not listening to my body, but it is sort of listening slash feeling the state of my body, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, which seems like a simple thing or maybe a very difficult thing. It's actually both. It's very simple and difficult.
Yeah, yeah, I can relate. I can relate.
It takes practice, right? But yeah, so going to, I mean, if we were talking in IFS terms, who's who's the where's the part that's crying? Where's the part that's shaky, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that really does take quite a bit of practice. Because it's a different, we think, at least I'll speak for myself. I thought that the same kind of rational part of me could do that work too, like could be with like hard emotions, but really it's kind of a different muscle that we're building up. It's kind of allowing that part to relax a little bit, and let in like an energy that's coming up from below, and to actually be with the felt sensation of it, not like the understanding necessarily of it. That part's still there and going to come back online and needs to understand. But I think like the moment to moment is really about sort of surrendering a little bit to sensation.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Like we're, honestly, we're so trained to think that the mind is everything,
Yeah.
and the mind is just like a little computer of all the past input experiences, right? It's like
Right.
popping into the present moment. I don't know. Read some Eckhart Tolle. That's always good too.
Right. Yeah. And um I'm just thinking as queer people, it's like that our minds need to take over so early in life to like just figure out survival, right? And so that can be like the only channel that we really know. And so learning to be with sensation can be extra challenging, I think, for our community. Because yeah, there's a letting go of control that can be associated with death, right? It's like if I let go of control and just let these feelings come up, I'm going to be rejected and I'm going to die. That is like it's like your younger parts are actually saying that. Like, even if we are really just like adults who are actualized and like living lives that are like much different than that belief, that can still be operating.
For sure. Yeah. What would something else be that what else can we do? So there's like starting with the anxiety and just kind of like quickly going to like what's on fire. So that
Yeah, yeah. Anxiety is a great place to start. A couple other things. I mean, one is just really assessing how affirming your relationships are, and how can people in your life handle emotions or not? You know, it's not somebody's fault if they can't. They just can't. They haven't like done that work. And so you just want to have a really honest assessment of like when I have brought up something that is somewhat emotional in nature, how does this person react? How does this person react? And like it's maybe like a smaller percentage, but like in your gut the people that can and the people that can't, but you do have to test the waters as well. So I think that's a huge piece, is just like starting to direct your energy more towards the people who can handle it, who you can grow with, as opposed to maybe just like the party friend who is just gonna like be there, to have fun with, but is not really there for like the deep moments.
definitely. I mean, moving towards external situations that match a loving internal. So if the internal, it's not all healed, but the general feeling is like I want to honor my feelings, I want to pay attention to them, then also choosing in the outside world, which can reflect the inside world, right? So
Yeah.
having an instinct about like who do I think I can share this with? So it's really like keeping yourself safe, not expecting other people to, but you keep yourself safe by understanding and knowing. what feels good on the outside. And so you create and go to those people, right?
Yeah, we always talk about that cliche of like going for emotionally unavailable people. Um, it's really just to keep your own emotional unavailability intact, right? Like if I just keep hanging out with this person, I don't have to go there internally. So yeah, and then I think just like, a big piece I think is, and this is typically in therapy, is like really unpacking emotion phobia, internalized homophobia, internalized transphobia, like all the messages that you got about how it was unsafe to be yourself, how it was unsafe to feel your emotions, how like speaking in a male body, how like boys weren't supposed to do certain things, unpacking all these messages that you got so that you can start to work through them a bit. I think it's just important to like name what got internalized. Over the course of your whole life and continues to get internalized today.
Yeah, we're talking about unpacking in a safe place. And what's coming up for me is as you know, as a therapist, I know it's so easy to get lost in content and story about one's life and about all the doings and goings on. And it touches upon feelings now we feel about it for sure. But it actually is quite hard to sit in your own therapy appointment and take the time to check in. And maybe your therapist isn't helping you do that. And, you could do the really bold thing and say, I really think I need to spend some time trying to check in with my emotions more. Hopefully the therapist is helping you do that, but that's just a great thing to do. And we get lost in story, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I think what I'm advocating for is like there's work to do in both of these, like there's the work of allowing your emotions to come up in the moment, like in therapy or with somebody in your life who can handle emotions. And then there is also like the unpacking of all the narratives of why it feels so risky
Yeah.
to go there,
Yes.
but I do think that I work more in the former, like I work more in the sort of like just allowing people to go to their experience. But if you don't acknowledge the part that's saying like, whoa, don't go there because of this reason and this reason and this reason, um, that part can actually, like from an IFS perspective, again, after you go there, come in and like punish you for going there. It's like you aren't supposed to go there because this puts our system at risk. So that's something you have to be really kind of cautious of is addressing the parts of yourself that are still really afraid and don't want to go there for good reason.
Yeah. I mean, for an example, anger is not something I do easily. And if I really examine that, it threatens my way of being okay in the world. And so and anger can feel threatening, right? So that's an area that is, it's like I'm much quicker to go to sadness or tears than to stop and go, really angry, actually,
Mhm.
also because it wasn't demonstrated in
Mhm.
that family of origin. Like, how do I'm not sure who's had the experience of being in a family where anger was demonstrated in a healthy way. Not very many people.
Yeah, yeah, such a tough one.
Yeah. But it would look something like, oh my God, I'm so angry, and without putting it on somebody else. Right.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm so pissed off right now.
Yeah. I know, such a challenge, such a big challenge. Uh,
We can
so
do
I, yeah,
that now. We can do that now, Nick.
I know. I'm already thinking about our previous disagreements. Yeah, I mean, I think the final message I would say is just like this is ongoing work that we're all doing, and there is a lot to unpack. This system that we live in is pretty fucked up in a lot of ways and doesn't allow us to just kind of be with our authentic selves in a very effective way at all. So Yeah, this is just like we're all doing this work.
Mm. Yeah, love your emotions, even the ones that are sort of hard to love, right?
Hmm.